Hello everyone and a very warm welcome to Power Platform Bootcamp. In this particular demo, I'm going to talk about Power Platform Test Studio and Test Engine for automated test. My name is Clavin. I'm a Microsoft Business Applications MVP. I'm a solutions engineer and work at PSPDF Kit. I'm also a Power Platform super user. So as Betim said, I also do a lot of community work. I've been awarded for last 2 years, super user for last, I think I have got 7 badges. So right from 2021, I like to write. So that's my blog and my YouTube channel down there. So that being said, what would be the agenda for today's meeting? First and foremost, we will go ahead and First and foremost, we'll go ahead and understand what Test Studio is and what testing is about, right? Why do we need automated testing? That's the first thing that comes to your mind. So, that being said, automated testing is required for software lifecycle development, right? Every app that you create needs to be tested. And if you don't test it the right way, you will go ahead and get problems after the release, and your customers will not be happy about it. That being said, it also detects issues early. Okay, if you do testing, you get the issues and you can go ahead and enhance it or put in, put in things in place that can do error handling. Manual testing is great for small apps. I'm not taking anything away from manual testers. But as the complexity grows, it's good to have an automated test in place. So that is what we are going to focus on, automated testing, right? So finally, a line in red, automated testing seamlessly streamlines testing, reducing the time and identifying the critical issues. So that being said, let's go into a demo. But before I go into the demo, I started off by saying, Microsoft has thrown some spanners out here. You see, there is a service interruption going around at Microsoft, and it has affected a lot of experiences. And unfortunately, one of my demo tenant that I was going to do demo on is also been experiencing some problems, right? So what I did when Betim was going ahead and doing demos, I signed up for a new customer service tenant and created this app for you. Okay. But that being said, this app should suffice to give us some basic understanding of what exactly Test Studio is about. So that being said, this is a Canvas app. Test Studio works for Canvas apps only, right? This is an automated test for Canvas apps. And let's consider a simple little use case out here. Let's say that I put in my name, Clavin, and I put in my email, right? And, I'm just typing like this, and I just click on submit button, right? This goes and submits to my data source. And here there is a problem, right? It has got incorrect email. What will happen in real life scenario? Let's consider that this would trigger an email in the backend. This would go ahead and give me more problems, right? The email would have bounced, and there should be so many things that can happen. If it's a mission critical email, just because of a typo, and when you are under pressure, you are bound to make those type of errors or human errors. As a test engineer or as a QA, my responsibility is to make the app robust and give all the errors that I have to the business or to the developer. And developer should put things in place, right? Should put error handling in place such that, okay, I again tell, such that these errors do not occur. So what does Power Apps go ahead and provide for us? Manual testing. It's okay for one screen, but what if you have 100 screens? Will it be good? I think your tester or the QA guy would be frustrated by doing the same test over and over again. So Microsoft has come up with Test Studio. Using Test Studio, you can create test cases. Okay. So let's go ahead and click on open. And this opens up in a new tab, right? This opens up in a new tab. So as this opens up in the new tab, we need to go ahead and understand a little bit of basics when it comes to the test studio. So I'm going to drag in my slides again, and we'll talk about the basic functions. So Test Studio has got 4 pillars. I call them 4 pillars because, these are the 4 functions that you will use more often than not. The first one is the select. The second one is the set property. The third one is the trace. And the fourth one is the assert. Assert is the most important one. It goes ahead and tells you the difference between the expected versus the actual behavior. When it comes to trace, trace is also very important. It is used for debugging. And set property is also one of the important things. For example, you can set a property of a label. Select can help you click on a button or simulate a click event, right? So all of these functions are really important. So that being said, if we go back, we can go ahead and try to write out here, right? If IntelliSense is my friend and I can write in select, go ahead and fill in the blanks, etc., etc. But, this tool, the Power Apps, is mainly targeted towards, citizen developers, right? So what Microsoft has done, it has provided us something known as recording. So using the recorder, okay, using this particular recorder, what you can do is you can record your test cases and then you can fine tune them over the time. So here it first and foremost prompts me for, um, permissions to get the data or to my data connections. And that means I just created this app. So, this particular event, I was actually a bit happy that, Betim's session went ahead and extended because it gave me time to build this app. So I think the demo gods might be, might not be happy, but they might not be very, very angry with me. So let's say that I put in an email out here. I'll just put in claven@xyz.com, the correct email, and just say that I clicked on the button. Okay, it goes to the data source and it will patch the data. Perfect. And I'll click on done. Right? So what has happened in front of you? It has created a test case. But there's an hierarchy. There's a test suite. You always have to remember. First comes the test suite. So you should give the test suite a meaningful name, test email, right? And then you can give it a description. I'm not going to give it a description. And I'll create a test case saying that assert email. Okay. I've not used assert as of now. At this point, what will happen is that if I try to play it, it will go ahead and build my test case and it will play it. So let's go ahead and do that. But here you see, my friends, when I try to play it, it tells me to publish it. So what does publishing mean in this context? Publishing means every time you make a change to the test case, there'll be a version getting created. Why is that happening? You need to understand the test case will be within your app, right? That means if you're moving from one environment to another, your test case goes with it. So you don't have to rewrite your test cases. For example, when you're moving your app from maybe, testing QA environment to production, you don't have to do that because your test cases and your test suite is actually a part of your app. Now, that being said, it takes a little bit of time for it to publish. So we need to stay patiently and wait for the publishing to happen. But during that time, right, you need to understand another important thing. The actions that we wrote out here, okay, the set properties, select button, etc., are all Power FX formulas. So let's go ahead and think about our use case, right? How will we assert our use case, the email in this particular context? What we will do, firstly, I'll go to the internet and type in Power Apps, test for incorrect email or function to test incorrect email. Let me be a little bit more descriptive. This is, in fact, you can also use ChatGPT and it will go ahead and give you some good answers. So here I go ahead and get a formula. Okay. First, I'll go through the thread. And here I see that I can use is test match with the regular expression to check if the email that I have submitted is correct or not. Okay. Why am I telling you this? You don't have to learn a new language out here. All you need to do is work on your PowerFX formulas, work with your PowerFX formulas, and that should do the trick. And that being said, it is still publishing. So let's get a little bit patient with it. And okay, it published. That's good. And here your test is playing in real time, right? I'm going ahead and putting in data and submitting it, and it got done. What I want you to see out here is first, it tells me the setup stage. So there's a setup stage out there which says on test case start and on test case completed. Okay, just keep those two things in the back of your mind because those are important. Now let's come back to the assert. Now to add an assert, firstly, I can just say assert email. I can give this step a meaningful name and I can start typing a formula, right? I can type in assert and do this, and it needs an expression, right? It needs an expression which will be evaluated to true or which will be evaluated to false. In my case, I'm going to copy, I already copied that particular statement out here. So what I'm going to do, I'll paste the same formula and I'll say if it's equal to true, then go ahead and tell me that it failed because of incorrect error, right? So first and foremost, I use the field, which is the field in my Power Apps, okay? If I go back to my Power Apps and click on fields, this is the field name. Text input underscore email is my field name, and I'm referencing the text property out here. And I said if it's true, if it goes ahead and invalidates, go ahead and try it out. So let's try this. Again, this is the most frustrating part for me that, every time you go ahead and publish it or make a single change to your test suite or your test case, you need to republish it and then you need to go ahead and use it. Okay. That can be frustrating at times, but this is a one-time job. You'll create a test and then I think that's done. You can just run it over and over again. But yes, your existing PowerFX knowledge can be used out here to go ahead and create test cases. So let's wait again for this to complete. In the meantime, I want to go ahead and do some groundwork out here. While this is getting published, we'll not waste time. I have added two connections out here. If you remember, I told you just keep in your mind on test case start and on test case completed. So just think about it, right? This particular test suite that I'm talking about, I'm showing you out here. It runs on the browser and all it does is that it shows you the graphical user interface. How will you be able to log this information to a data source? Or how will you be able to get out meaningful information out of it? So there are multiple ways that you can think about. You can go ahead and create an Excel file and say store all the data that you need in an Excel file, and then you can review it. That's one of the scenario. Second scenario, whenever a test fails, send an email to the developer mentioning why the test failed, right? That's one of the scenarios that you might want to go ahead and give. And Test Studio actually gives you a way to do that. Once this gets published, we will have to go ahead and put in some expressions using our connectors, and that will go ahead and send an email and help you log the information that is required. So whenever I think I should go and check the chat, it goes ahead and starts. So that's something very strange happening today. I was going to check the chat if there were any questions, but at that point, it actually went ahead and just ran again. So that's done. Play again. Don't take more time to publish because I didn't make any changes. So what I'm going to do this time, what I'm going to do is, let me go ahead and I was late. Okay, I was late to add this, but you see, it went ahead and asserted the email because the email address is incorrect. And it told me like, okay, Clavin, on test case completed, okay, on test case completed, an assertion failed and it failed because of incorrect email. That's interesting. That means it's logging the information somewhere such that I can go ahead and, add that information into a data source. And that can happen out here. So, you can customize your test suite or your test studio to go ahead and send or interact with the data source when a test case starts, or interact even with your Power Apps, for example, navigate to a particular screen, etc. And then you can also say what happens when a test case is completed. What happens when a test suite has been completed? A test suite can have a multiple test cases. But in this particular demo, we are just having one particular test case, right? And what I'm going to do, I have got two connectors out here, right? I have the Office 365 connector. So let me go ahead and write a formula out here such that it will be triggered whenever a test case has been completed, right? Whenever a test case fails, it will trigger a flow. So again, the whole information that you know about functions, expressions, etc., can be used out here. So I'm going to use the Office 365 connector, and I'm going to use none other than send an email v2, right? I'm going to send an email. To the send an email v2, it needs a send to email address. I don't know the email address of this tenant. Bad, Clavin, because I don't remember it because I just created it. So it's going to be this. I need to click on view account. Let's try. Okay, so where is my email address? Perfect. So this is my email address. And I'm going to go back out here. And I'm going to go ahead and send an email to this email address, right? To this email address, I'm going to go ahead and next it needs a subject. So I say test results. And then what I do is that I go ahead and want to put in what happened when the test suite has completed. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to type in test case results. See this, it tells me the test case results. And I can go ahead and send it directly out there. But I think there is a problem with the format. So I'm going to change it to JSON. And let me format it such that, what's the options? So JSON, let's say indent 4. Okay, let's keep it simple. So at this point, I can close this and close this. This is my formula, right? So whenever a test case has been completed, you can go ahead and send an email. That's awesome. I'll go ahead and play this and I'll publish it. So let's see, how does this work? Does it work? Does it send us an email or does it not send us an email? So that being said, we can also go ahead and log data to another data source such as SharePoint. In this case, I can actually show you a list. Let's go ahead and not this list. It should be test logging, right? So I'll go into the test logging list. Again, it tells me to allow. Come on, I need this to fail. Okay, it just went through. So try again, Clavin. In fact, the email arrived. That's good. So an email has arrived and it tells me, it actually tells me that the test case name, test suite, and it tells me that the test case failed. So something is not going on as expected. So let me do this particular Teams panel is coming in between. So I'm going to go here. Going to go ahead and change the email out here itself. Let's try that. Let's play it. Let's publish it. So this way you can go ahead and send the data to the data source of your choice. I'm sending an email, but you can log it to SharePoint and you can log it to any data source of your choice. So while this gets published, let's go back and look at the test results scenario. So basically it returns a lot of data, right? We just use the entire JSON object, but you can just pick out what you need from here. You can go ahead and say, okay, I just need to have the end time, the start time, if it's success, is failure, etc. The same is for this test case as well as for the test suite results. Like you can log in the start time, end time, what all of the tests failed. I'll say tests failed, etc., etc. Right? So you get a lot of information out here. Again, we need to wait because it is getting published. So that's something that I wanted to cover up. And in the meantime, I can actually show you if this completes on time. Your demo tenant. So I can show you some tests that I have logged in the past. So let me just quickly show you that. Okay, so in the past, I have logged the test case. It looked like this, and this tenant is not working. All my demos were configured on this tenant. But you clearly see that I could easily assert. I put in the title. I went ahead and create when it was created. It was created yesterday. And you know, what is the failure message out here? What is the success message out here? If it was successful, it would be true or it would be false. If there were traces that I had introduced, you could even go ahead and add traces. How would the formula look like? The formula would look like this. Let me just paste a formula in here. So the formula would look like this. So basically you would take the data and patch it. You get the test result object and then you can go ahead and access the properties within it. Okay. So you see in the background, I think my test has completed and it sent me an email. But you get the gist of it. I'm just patching the data of my test cases into a data source. This is mainly helpful when something goes wrong in the company. I can at least go back to the business and show them a report saying that, you know, I did this test case, and this test case, and these are the results. But what you're seeing is an edge case, right? You can also use it as a defensive measure in some of the cases, right? So here you see, because the email address was incorrect, it actually went ahead and failed. And here it should tell me that, you know, it failed. Yeah, it failed because of incorrect email. So this is basics about test cases, or you can say the test studio. That being said, that's all awesome. Now we also need to talk about some limitations. As you know, components are not supported, code components are not supported, nested galleries, we can work around this. I will talk about this in a little bit. Media controls are not supported. You know, formula level error handling, it's not supported. And you know, the most important thing, if you're having Git version control enabled, for example, if you have Git version control, two developers can edit the document or the app at the same time. This is not supported. So, you know, whenever you go ahead and use test cases or test studio, you know, there are a few limitations. I would say the limitations can be a showstopper. But what I know from Microsoft is they are going ahead and working on making this even better. Now, that being said, this is awesome. We covered the test studio. So we have built up, you know, the building blocks are there. Now that we have um, understood test studio, the next step would be to understand test engine. So what is test engine? So test engine is an open source project designed to offer automated testing platform for all the Power Apps application. It provides several advantages. Let's start from the end to the first. It's good to go ahead and have screenshots and recording evidences of your test cases. It can provide you that. It can go ahead and mock networks as well. So if you're going ahead and having some network calls, it can mock that. DOM extraction. Do I need to learn JavaScript to do this? Do I need to learn the DOM or the document object model to go ahead and understand how to do the testing? The answer is no. This is what the test engine gives you. The test engine gives you a set of tools from which you can go ahead and export your test suite and then use it in your test engine. And that's what we are going to focus on. When you export your test suite, it will go into a YAML format. So what does that mean? What I'm trying to tell you, that's the big question, right? And that's what I'm going to show you right now. So I'm going to go here in my test studio. And if I download this suite that I downloaded is in the YAML format. I can pick up this file and straight away provide it to Test Studio, and Test Studio should run automated test for me from my application or from my desktop itself. Now, that being said, how will that all happen? Clavin, do I need to go ahead and install a new software? Is it a paid software, etc.? It's an open source, so it's not paid. I already answered that, but you get the gist of it, right? As a pro code developer, how can I use it? So there are a few prerequisites that you need to take into consideration. The prerequisite would be to install .NET Core 6.0 SDK. You should have an MS Build SDK path environment variable pointing to this particular SDK. You should have PowerShell installed, and you should also have Git Bash installed on your computer, right? So again, let's go back and let's look at first the basics, right? So I'm going to open a VM to do this because I have restrictions on my computer, so I had to use a VM. So let's go ahead and type in test studio power apps GitHub. So here you see, this is the test studio documentation that is being provided, right? You can read through it. That's good, but we are looking at test engine. So, we need to get a little bit careful when I'm typing. So test engine, yeah, this is what I'm looking for. So test studio and then test engine. So what I told you, it is a GitHub project, right? It is a GitHub project and the project is on your screen. Now, first thing, I told you that I already have the prerequisites installed on my computer, such as .NET, PowerShell, etc. They are already there, right? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and set up a folder and I'm going to say Saudi demo, right? Let's keep it simple. And what I'm going to do, I'm going to open maybe Git Bash here, right? And next, what I'm going to do, I'm going to clone this particular repository. So I'm going to say git clone, and then I need to clone this repo. So the repo needs to be cloned, and it's going to be this one. Paste. Okay, so let's try to clone this repo out here. Perfect. So I have cloned this repo. Okay, that's the first thing that I need to do. And all the detailed instructions are provided out here. So what I'm going to do first, I'm going to clone the repository. Then it tells me go into this particular folder path. Now to do that, what I'm going to do is I'm firstly going to open my project. Okay, it's here. And it told me to go into that particular folder path. Let me actually copy this and put it on a different screen so that, I don't have to go back and forth with this. So, but I'll drop this link in the chat as well. Don't worry. So, this is the GitHub that I have cloned. Once I have cloned the GitHub, I need to go into a particular repo. It's under source and it's under source and it's under Power Apps Test Engine. Okay, this is the one that we are looking for. So what it tells me, Clavin, take this one and do a CD on it. So I'm going to blindly follow the instructions out there, right? So do a CD and try to play this. Perfect. So now I'm into the Saudi folder, right? Saudi demo folder. Next, what it tells me, Clavin, you need to install some prerequisites, and the prerequisite that, there's an engine that runs behind the scene for this particular recording and screenshots. And for that engine, I need to go into a path and run a PowerShell script such that it gets installed on my computer. Okay. So I'm again going to step back out here. I'm going to go into the test engine, and, I'm going to go into, no, firstly, I need to do a .NET build on this one. So only after that, I'll get those things. So .NET build. This is the most scary part for me, because this is where, demo gods can be extremely nice or extremely angry with you, right? You do a .NET build and, I saw a comment, you like green, and you see like red on your screen. When I used to work previously in a previous company, we used to say, your PowerShell is bleeding because there was so much red. There was so much, um, things out there, which actually said error, error, and error. So that being said, I am trying to go ahead and find out if there are any questions. Firstly, thank you, audience. You have been such a good and patient audience for, you are going ahead and, there are a few things which are not in my control, but you are still being patient with me. So thank you very much for that. So I have built this project. Okay, let's go another one. If you have a good audience, that's the best thing. So here there is a bin folder that got created. If you remember previously, this was not there. So I'm going to go into the debug. I'm going to go into the test engine. That is what it tells me. And it tells me, Clavin, go ahead and run this PowerShell script. Okay, I'll do that. So I'm going to do again. Let's do a CD. And let's try to run this PowerShell script, right? To run this PowerShell script, what's the name of the script? The name of the script is playwright.ps1. So let me actually do it here itself. So dot playwright does it. Yeah, so it's there. And I'll say install. So if you're doing it on a vanilla computer, you will go ahead and do it exactly as I'm doing. If you see no errors, it's okay. That means something has gone correct. At least there is no red color on my screen. So that being said, this looks good. Now, this looks good. This looks awesome. But the next step would be to go ahead and import a solution in the gallery. You can go ahead. What I recommend, right? What I do usually, I first go ahead and try to work out the samples. So in this case, this particular repo out here has got samples, right? The samples has got many samples. And then I go ahead and change the samples such that it fits my use case. So for this particular demo, let's start with the basic things. That is the sample. And I need to find my browser. Bear with me. And this time I have uploaded the sample known as basic gallery out here. What it has one canvas app, right? Which has gallery in it. Now we will not see it by playing it there. We'll see it in the testing mode, right? So just bear with it. It's a canvas app and it has got testing related to galleries. That's what you need to know. Then it tells me, Clavin, go ahead and set up the config file. So where the hell is the config file? So the config file is there. It tells me it's another PS test engine, right? I go into the source. It's there here. It tells me set up this config file. Okay, I'll set it up, no problem. But what does it need? It needs these following details: environment ID, tenant ID, test plan, output folder, and it needs the log level domain. Okay, the last three are optional, right? However, the minimum required is the first four. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to go back into my Power Apps in my Power Apps out here. I'm going to click on session details. Okay, so I went into the Power Apps Maker portal and clicked out here. I can copy this and I have all the information on with me. For this particular demo, what I'm going to do, I'm quickly going to update two fields and I'm going to talk you over it. So just bear with me. Okay, this looks good. this looks good. Okay, so I'm going to go back into my VM and going to paste this in, right? So what have I done? I have done something very simple. I have said that, okay, this is my environment, this is my tenant ID, and this is the test plan. Go ahead and write the output in the outputs folder. Do I have an output folder yet? The answer is no. So I'm going to create an output folder out here. New folder, output. Right? So this is the output folder that it's going to write it to. It needs a test plan. Do I have a test plan? Yes, but the naming convention is different. So I'm going to rename this, copy, going to go back and change this here. Now you'll say, Clavin, what is this new language? Test plan.fx. It's not a new language. The extension is just not being shown. So file extension, this is a YAML file. Okay, so just the YAML file which I downloaded, if you remember, something similar to that. And at this point, this looks good and I can click on save, right? So once I click on save, let me go back and try to find the article again. So I have updated the config file with what I need. Once I have updated the config file, I need to create environment variables. Okay, so let me actually close this and let me open the test plan for you. So it goes ahead and needs the user email and the user password, right? And these environment variables need to be stored on my computer. Now, there's a gotcha out here. One of the main reasons my test cases or my demo was failing, because firstly, Microsoft pushed out, authentication for all the users, and I not being the global admin for the tenant. Yeah, that's true. I not being the global admin for the tenant, which I had the demo on, I could not get in and change the authentication type. But nevertheless, I have demo tenants because I have a Microsoft MVP. So I'm using that particular tenant, right? So here you see it has user one, email. Okay, that means I need to go ahead and use PowerShell and create this environmental variables. How do I create this environmental variables? I need to create it by putting in PowerShell code. So the code is simple and it looks like this. Right, so I'll go here. Creating an environment variable of type user one, the value, then user one email value and user password. I'm going to delete this tenant exactly after my demo. So if you take a screenshot of it, this tenant will not be available. Okay, so I just ran it and it created all the environment variables for me. Now, that being said, this is good. The environment variables have been created. Now, what next? Next, what it tells me is do a .NET run. So go to a folder and do a .NET run. So I'm going to go into a folder, and that folder is SRC test engine. So I should already have the path in there. So I just need to get into this folder, run it. Okay, and it tells me to do a .NET run. So again, the moment of truth. If this has been set up correctly, it should go ahead and at least try to do a test case. It works in the background. It works in the background. And let's hope that it works as expected. So you see, it tried to open the app URL. If I copy this URL and put it in the browser, it means that it's an anonymous URL that it has created with reference to my credentials. And it's trying to do the things that are written in the test plan. Okay, that's the most important part out here. So again, this looks okayish, but you see more details out here. You can go ahead and see that, it's using a Chromium based browser and it's trying to go into a test case. So that looks even more promising. And, let's hope that this goes ahead and succeeds or fails. Okay, it doesn't matter. It succeeds or fails. As a QA, for me, it's important. Okay, it passed. Shit, I hate this test, right? As a QA, I wanted this to fail. But that's not always true. Sometimes passing is also fine, but our QA is usually very happy when he has a test case that fails. So if I go into the samples and if I click here, it has created a recording, hopefully. So first and foremost, it has created screenshots. Okay, it has created screenshots. So it has created a screenshots saying what happened in the gallery when the gallery ended, and when, let's see how the gallery started, by the way. When the gallery loaded, it tells me lorem ipsum, and when it ended, it tells me test ended. Okay, that's awesome. But awesomeness doesn't stop here with the test engine. You can actually go a step back. And because this is a VM and I don't have a media player, I'm going to try to, let's see if I can directly open it. Open with, choose something. Okay, forget it. I'm going to drag and drop it into Chrome if it doesn't work out here. Okay, it doesn't work in Internet Explorer. So let's try to drag and drop it in here. And let's see. Okay, so let's see how the test actually worked behind the scene. It went ahead and okay, it tried to log in. So that's the reason why, you need to have credentials without MFA on it. And once you have done it, you see that it is going to go ahead and try to open the app. It's trying to open the app behind the scene. And then it's going to click here, there, and get the results, right? It's going to click here, there, and get the results. But that being said, this is exactly what we need, right? As as a test or a QA person, you can go ahead and set up you can monitor a folder and you can send an email whenever the test case has been completed, something like that, right? You can do multiple things and you see the test case has ended. So that's awesome. But that being said, what happens when you get an error, right? We need to talk about error handling as well. So what did we do? Let's recap that. We built it. We imported a solution for the demo. Then we set up the config file. We also set up the user authentication. And then we actually ran the test and saw how the test actually works out. That's awesome. Now, the next thing is that we are going to talk and look at the test plan. So as I told you, the test plan is the one that we downloaded. We can use that as well, but let's stick to the basic, right? This is how the basic test plan that work looks like. It has test suite, it has a test case, and it has steps out here. And if you look at this, the test steps are similar to YAML, right? The one or the PowerFX formulas that we went ahead and wrote in. So, this is actually really easy for us to automate. However, this also supports multiple browsers. Okay, when I say multiple browsers, let's try another browser, Firefox, right? But now what I want to do is now I don't know why it's failing, right? I want to troubleshoot. I want to troubleshoot a little bit. How do I troubleshoot? Now, this particular test suite has got many out of box you can say properties, right? Out of box properties. If I go back to my PowerPoint presentation, you will see that this is the basic, but if I should go back actually to the GitHub and I should scroll down. So we followed this. We'll talk about the gotchas in a bit. So what do you do next? You can download the suite and you can use it. But we need to talk about the test plan. So I'm trying to find that test plan, if I can spell it correctly. Is this the config? No, this is not the config. So on this page, there is a test plan that we can go ahead and use. So sample instructions, test settings, we can use those things. YAML user reference. This is also not it. Is it this? Sample introduction. So this is the introduction to the samples, and you can go ahead and read it. And we need to look at all the definitions. So if I look at the test cases, there are all these definitions that you can pass, right? And you can take it a little bit ahead than that. When I say that, I'm going to drop a link. I cannot find it right now, but I'm going to send a link later in the chat where you can go ahead and say, don't run it in a headless mode. So run it as normal testing and don't run it as a headless mode. Now, again, remember this is YAML. So if you tab it, it might give you an error. So space, space, space. If you get errors related to YAML in your test case, go ahead and check a YAML validator, paste in your test plan out here, and then try to run it again, right? So this is good. I have saved this file and let's go ahead and try to run it again. And let's see the behavior. So we made two changes. One is we changed the browser. And secondly, we went ahead and did what? We went ahead and said, don't run it as a normal thing. Um, Run it and show me the result. Don't do a headless. Show me the UI. And that's what you're seeing, my friends. You can, in this point, right, if there's an authentication error, you can actually see that it's failing to authenticate. If there is a click problem, you'll see that it's going ahead and failing here. So, you can go ahead and fine tune this a little bit more. If you see that your screen has been stuck, you can add timeouts to your test settings such that it doesn't time out in 30 seconds. Rather, you could push it to 60 seconds, right? So, you can go ahead and fine tune your test results by fine tuning the test plan in there. So if you see, it's running in real time and it creates exactly the same out there. That being said, how much time do I have? Or am I already on time? Okay, it seems that I have time. So yes, this is only for Canvas apps. And this is something that I have used for Canvas apps mainly. But that is what it is for right now. But you see, it's powerful and it can be used. So that were the comments that I tried to answer. But if you see out here, you see that this is a test template. That's what we saw. We saw the test engine demo. So this is the limitations. Okay, it works only with Canvas apps. It does not support multi-factor authentication. We should support at least the app password here. That's what we have put in a feedback. Then, the Microsoft locale. If there's a locale, then you might have to use a different type for error handling, and it's documented out here in the GitHub link. For example, if I go back here, if you're doing it other than EN English, let's go back down here, locale related things. Yeah, so here it tells me if there's a language and region, you can use period instead of decimal points. You can look at this. They also gave you examples out here, which tells you replace comma with something like that. So that is a limitation. We also looked at how you can error handle it. You can try with alternate browsers. You can increase the timeout. And if nothing works, you can open a bug in this particular page itself. And finally, modern controls are also not supported. And with that, I think I'm good to end the session. Any questions? That makes me think, was I audible? Somebody can unmute and tell me.
Yeah, thank you, Clevin, for having you today. You are delivered a very wonderful session.
Thank
I
you for your
love the way
kind
you
words.
present. Yeah, I love your method for presenting, and you act as a storyteller. So thank you for having you today.
It was a pleasure to be on this particular platform. And again, a big thanks to the sponsors, Mohammed, for organizing everything. I used to ping him and he used to get back to me within few minutes. And that's really commendable and that's really appreciated from my side. And that being said, I know that, the test engine can be further enhanced. I have been trying to push a little bit more, but it once you go ahead and have that in place, I think it will really help at least the Canvas app developers for now. So that's my feedback for it. And it uses Playwright under the hood. That means it supports multiple browsers. So things are okay-ish. But yeah, Microsoft was trying to throw a spanner, as I told you. Luckily, this tenant worked. I still cannot log into my main tenant with my Power Apps.